Like I said, this week we're starting a new series called Judgy, learning how to judge without being judgmental. And I think this is obviously a very important message. Like I said, I've been working on this for a while, been wanting to do this for a while. I wish I could see the list of ideas that I have so I could prove it to you. But like I said, this has been in the docket for a while. But our conversation last week just really helped confirm that, this is something that we need to really discuss and talk about. So most of us are familiar with this statement. Oops, what happened? Only God can judge me. How many people you're familiar with that statement?
It's a tattoo.
You have it as a tattoo?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay.
It is
a.
It's like a popular tattoo. Some people have it across their back. Some people have it on their body.
So yeah, this is only God can judge me. So it doesn't matter if you're a Christian. To your point, doesn't matter if you're not a Christian. Everybody knows this phrase. Only God can judge me. Now, even though the sentiment is in the Bible, this phrase is not necessarily found in the Bible. But people either use this phrase or, if you're Christian, if you're holy, you use its cousin. Do not judge so that you will not be judged.
Not his cousin.
That's the cousin. These are cousin statements. So, the question is, these two statements, only God can judge me, and do not judge so that you will not be judged. My question that I pose, I need you to do me a favor. I want y'all in the chat. I want y'all to chime in also. So just check the chat. I want to hear what they're saying. Are these two statements true?
The first one's partially true.
In the chat, I want y'all to chime in too. Are these statements true? You say it's partially true.
The first one is partially true. The second one is true.
I'm getting some partialies.
Partial. Okay, now explain the partially. You say it's partially. No, yeah. You said it's partially true. So.
Well, I say the first one is partially true because.
Yeah. Grab the mic so they can make sure the people can hear you.
Hello, my name is.
Okay, you know what?
Okay. So I say the first one is partially true because we, as believers, we can call out other believers, but non-believers, from my understanding, until non-believers come to Christ, only God can judge them.
Somebody been listening in church.
I was reading my Bible.
Yeah.
I always read my Bible.
For that word.
And then but the second one is true because that's what the Bible says. So, right, yes.
When it comes to these statements, this has kind of been the sentiment. It's true and it's false at the same time. Both of these are true and false at the same time. The question about whether it's true or false depends on what you mean by judge. I'm about to break this down, all right? So, in English, right, in our language, in English, one word can have several different meanings. So, for example, if I say the word love in our language, right, in English, it can have different meanings and can express varying levels depending on the context in which you use the word. So, here's some examples. We say, I love God, right? We also say, I love my wife. I love my dog. I love pizza. I love this song. Now, when I say those statements, are the levels of love equal? How do you know the level of love I'm expressing? Depends on the subject. So when you talk about the sentence, you got the verb, you got the noun, so it depends on the subject. So if I say I love God, you pretty much, for the most part, because again, there's nuances there. But if I say I love God, you pretty much know I'm talking about, the height of certain type of love. If I say I love my wife and I love pizza, two different types of love, and those loves at least shouldn't be at the same level. All right. So, like I said, depending on the context and the subject of the statement, we understand the depth of or the level of love being expressed. So in the Greek language, specifically in Koine Greek, which is Common Greek, which would have been what they spoke in first century, they had several terms. They would use several terms to express the same thing. So they wouldn't, like we use one word to express varying degrees of certain things. They'll have different words that mean the same thing, but they express those different levels. So they're doing like the inversion of what I'm talking about. So again, this is an example. Did I not put them? Okay, here we go. So Greek words for love. So I'm using the same example, right? So here we have Greek words for love. The first one is agape, Christian love. I love God. All right. The next one is phileo. This would mean brotherly love or friendship, right? I love my boy. I love Marcus. All right. Friendship love. Eros. It's romantic love or desire. I love my wife. It could be romantic love. It could be the infatuation, stuff like that. Romantic, right? Then you have storge, which is familial affection, like a parent and a child. I love my daughters. Okay, so in their language, when they would express love, they would use different terms to express that level. So we also use love, like I said, we'll use the word love. Like I said, I love pizza. What it really, when we say that, what we mean is we have an extreme like for pizza, but they wouldn't raise it to that level, which is why they don't have a term for it. Okay, so if they said I like spaghetti, they would say I like spaghetti instead of I love spaghetti. But now, this same thing is true when it comes to the word or about the verb judge. Now notice I said the verb because remember judge can be a verb and a noun. The noun is someone that sits in the courtroom and passes judgment. That's a judge. But we're talking about the verb, the action of judging. Okay? Now, our word judge has different meanings. So do I have those? Yes. Okay, so judge. When we say judge, we mean to form an opinion, to sit in judgment on or condemn, to determine or pronounce after deliberation, to estimate or evaluate, or to hold an opinion. So when we say judge, again, depending on its context and the subject, it can mean any one of these different things. But again, you have to understand the context to understand which of these definitions actually applies in the instance in which someone uses it. So in the Greek, there's also a word for judge. Let's go there. Krino. Now, pulled this from a lexicon, Dictionary of Biblical Languages with Semantic Domains. But krino is this is it in Greek, and this is the transliterated word. But it's a verb. You see that right here. These are the definitions of krino: to decide, to come to a conclusion, prefer, to judge one thing better than another, to evaluate, to judge based on correctness of something, to hold a view, to have an opinion, to make a legal decision, decide to make a legal decision, decide a legal question of right or wrong, condemn or judge as guilty. Okay? So these, if I talk about kreno, which is a word for judge, these are the pretty much the definitions. So now, there are other words that mean judge that are built off of this root word, but they're slightly different. So, but I want you to really hone in on these underlines. Kreno meaning to come to a conclusion, to judge one thing better than another, to condemn or judge as guilty. All right? Let's keep going. So like I said, there's two other words. We have anakreno and diakreno. All right? Again, these are the Greek words. That's how they look in Greek. Anakreno, diakreno. So, anakreno, slightly different, means to study thoroughly, seek to learn the truth of by the process of careful study, to criticize, to express disapproval, to evaluate carefully, examine, judge. Diakreno, again, all of these are verbs. To evaluate carefully, judge, prefer, judge a superior, make a distinction, to judge there is a difference, doubt, I don't know why I put the B there. Anyway, to dispute, to argue, to criticize, to express disapproval. All right? So, and again, I want y'all to really hone in on the underlines, to study thoroughly, seek to learn the truth of by process of careful study, to evaluate carefully, examine, and then for diakreno, to evaluate carefully, make a distinction, to judge there is a difference. All right? So now I'm going to go through some verses just to show how these apply in Scripture so you can kind of see the distinction. So let's go. Now, I'm going to do this in two different translations because I'm going to show it in the KJV, but I'm also going to show it in the NASB. I'm not knocking the KJV. I just want to show the distinction in how, because KJV and most of us were familiar with, that grew up in church are familiar with it. So again, that's why I want to draw the distinction, just so you can see how these get used differently. Okay? So let's go back to Matthew 7:1-2. This is kreno, all right? This means to condemn or judge as guilty. So the part of this is the verse we just read. Judge not, I'm reading the King James first. Judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. So NASB, do not judge so that you will not be judged. For in the way you judge, you will be judged, and by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Now let me, applying the definition, it would read kind of like this. Do not condemn so that you will not be condemned. For in the way that you condemn, you will be condemned. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Does that clarify? Does that make a distinction for you guys?
Yeah.
Does that kind of clarify what Jesus was actually saying? All right, so that's kreno. Let's keep going. This is anakreno, to study or to examine. All right, so 1 Corinthians 4:3-4. Again, I'm going to read this out of the KJV, and then we'll go to the NASB. But with me, it is a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment. Yea, I judge not mine own self, for I know nothing by myself, yet I am not hereby justified, but he that judgeth me is the Lord. NASB. But to me, it is insignificant. It is an insignificant matter that I would be examined by you or by any human court. In fact, I do not even examine myself, for I am not aware of anything against myself. However, I am not vindicated by this, but the one who examines me is the Lord. All right? So, again, we talked about anakreno, meaning judge, but the definition We see it in the KJV, would be judge, but to be a little bit more precise, this term is actually examined. So Paul is not talking about judging in terms of condemnation. He's talking about judging in terms of being examined. All right? So now let's keep going. Everybody with me? All right. Now let's move on to diakrino. Diakrino, which means to evaluate carefully, to make a distinction. All right? To evaluate carefully and make a distinction. Again, I'm going to read it in the KJV and in the NASB. So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 6:5. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one that shall be able to judge between his brethren. All right? NASB. I say this to your shame. Is it so that there is not among you anyone wise who will be able to decide between his brothers and his sisters? See the distinction. All right? So again, krino, anakrino, diakrino. All the words are judge, but have slightly different meanings in how they're applied. Okay? So now, to go back to the original question, I think that's where this slide was supposed to be. To go back to the original question, when I say only God can judge me, and the scripture, do not judge so that you will not be judged, and I asked the statement at the top, are these statements true? It depends on what you mean by judge. All right, everybody follow me? Now, the problem for us as Christians when we talk about this judging is how people, not just Christians, but people in general, how we judge, okay? When we judge, we tend to condemn. We don't examine, we don't scrutinize, we don't discern, which is slightly different. And I'll break that down. But, like I said, when we judge, we condemn. The other problem, on the flip side, even if people do examine us or scrutinize us or discern us, we take it as condemnation. So now nobody can speak into our life, which is where that only God can judge me comes from. All right, because what this statement really ends up being used as is a way to avoid accountability. You try to judge, you try to examine, what's the word? Examine, scrutinize, discern someone. You condemning me, you can't do that. Don't talk to me about that. All right? So, the problem with that is when no one can speak into your life, when no one can examine your life, when no one can discern your life, you end up making needless mistakes that you don't have to. And a lot of times God will send you people to help course correct you, but because we don't allow anybody to speak into our lives, because only God can judge me, we end up missing out what God has for us.
But can't you call?
I'm going to get there. I promise you I'm going to get there.
Okay.
I promise you I'm going to get there.
Because I'm a little confused because you can't. A rose is a rose.
I'm going to get there. Trust me.
And I got to call a thing what a thing is.
Trust me. This is getting. I'm coming straight up your street. I promise you. I'm down the block right now, but I'm about to park right in front of your house.
Okay.
I'm down the street right now, but I'm telling you, I'm driving a little slow. But trust me, I'm about to park right in front of your house. Now, the truth of the matter is, Christians are called to judge, but meaning they're called to examine, to scrutinize, or discern. Now, I'll expound more on that in a few minutes, all right? I'm telling you, I'm getting there. But what we are not allowed to do, is condemn, to pass judgment, or pronounce sentence on people. This is what Jesus is actually saying with this statement. Because remember, we would go back to apply the Greek. We talked about krino, right?
Not in my book.
Remember, krino means to condemn, to judge as guilty. So again, applying this definition, when we reread that verse, Jesus is saying, do not condemn so that you will not be condemned. For in the way you condemn, you will also be condemned. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. All right? Stick with me. I'm telling you, I'm almost there. James reinforces this thought. James, Jesus' brother, also reinforces this thought. James 4:11 through 12. Do not speak against one another, brothers and sisters. The one who speaks against a brother or sister or judges his brother or sister condemns, speaks against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge of it. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you judging your neighbor? And this is krino. So this, we're talking about condemning. All right? So, what does this mean? As Christians, we cannot tell people they're going to hell.
I've never said that.
No, I'm not saying you said that.
No.
But
I have said there's a special place in hell for some of these people.
Now, so like I said, as Christians, we can't tell because we're not the authority. We don't have the authority to pass that sentence. Now, what we can say is, if you don't change your ways, you could end up in hell. Yes, you can say that. But I cannot run around, Marcus, you're going to hell. Because here's the deal. The thief on the cross, his crimes were so bad that he got crucified. He caught a death sentence. If anybody, I'm sure everybody in that crowd thought he's going to hell. But because of him, his belief in Christ, just in that simple moment, just in him saying, Jesus, remember me when you get into your kingdom. And Jesus said, from this day forward, you will be with me in paradise. This man that obviously was going to hell. But Jesus was the one that could pass that sentence. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people that we have condemned to hell that we're going to be surprised when we get on the other side.
I will be surprised if Hitler's there. I certainly will.
Now,
I ain't questioning God, but I would totally be surprised if I met some Klan people. I'd be totally surprised I would be totally surprised. I'm not condemning them, but I would be surprised that they're there. That in that one moment, like the thief on the cross, could make a difference in that one moment. That erases the damage, the pain, the hurt, the misery, and men like Hitler and slave owners have caused for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm not questioning God, I ain't questioning you. I just want to know why there's someone in their moment on their deathbed can say, "I'm sorry," and then it's erased.
but see, they can't. And here's the deal. It has to be sincere. That's a huge, and I know we look at, you can just say, I'm sorry, and everything's erased. No, it can't. Remember, God does not judge our words. He don't even judge our actions. He judges our heart. In that moment, Jesus saw what was going on in that thief's heart. And that is why he was able to make it. It's not, you done lived like hell your whole life. And you laying on your deathbed, Lord, my bad. And expect to make it in. It's because remember, a genuine, even for people that profess to be Christians, there's a genuine repentance that has to take place in your heart for God to actually receive you.
But you have religions like Catholicism who say, well, that person that repents at the end, they're going to purgatory.
That's what they say. But what is
Are there levels
but
of
what
heaven?
what is purgatory?
Are there levels of heaven?
I don't know. I ain't been there. But I tried my best to stick to the 66 books. Because that's the one thing that's not in dispute. Catholics, Orthodox, heck, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, nobody disputes the 66. That's something we can all agree on, okay? So, I stick with the 66. I don't go outside of them. Purgatory is a construct that they have made up to explain their doctrines. Is it in the 66? I don't see it in there. So I don't ascribe to it. I hear what y'all are saying in terms of, what this person did is not, doesn't erase the damage that they may have caused, per se. But remember, God is not judging us on a scale. He's not trying to see if our good outweighed our bad. That's not what this is about. Again, this is about sincere devotion to Him, following His ways. I can't speak for God. I don't know how He judges hearts. All right, but I can say that that's His standard of how He judges someone. He doesn't judge our actions. He doesn't judge our deeds, stuff like that. He judges what is sincerely in our hearts. And if we take that tact, there's a parable that addresses this that's escaping me right now. But anyway, if we take that tact, right, then none of us should be in a position to be redeemed, because all of us have done some sort of damage. As much as you don't want to admit it, you are a villain in somebody's story. All of us are. Okay? And for some people, you're as blessed as you are, as saved as you are, as Holy Ghost filled and fire baptized as you are still a villain in someone's story. Paul was killing Christians, becomes saved, becomes one of the most prolific writers in the New Testament. But there were people that remember what he did and never accepted him. And I'm talking about Christians. They never accepted him. So, again, and I know it's difficult for us to have the mind of God, but we have to stop judging people by our standards, because your standard doesn't mean anything in God's economy. We have to judge through the eyes that God does. But let me continue. So, like I said, as Christians, I cringe every time I hear a Christian tell somebody they going to hell. I really do. Can I tell you the second thing I cringe with? Ooh, it's about to get sticky. I hate it when people call folk witches and they have no evidence.
All right now.
No evidence. Now, remember when I put that dude up here? I had that whole thing. He was trying to call out tell y'all to use the elements. That was my proof. That was evidence. But I did not call him a witch. I said he was practicing witchcraft. He was teaching witchcraft. But I never called him a witch. Okay? These are statements. You're going to hell. This person's a witch. You're this, you're that. These are statements of condemnation. We can't do that as Christians, because we don't have the authority to make that type of judgment. Now,
So you're just saying the difference is the language, I see you do deeds that in my mind, they're evil, you know. Folk killing people, shooting people. You go into a school and you shoot up all these people. Now, I can't get into your head and you have mental problems, blah, blah, blah. Your deeds were evil. I'm not to call that, I'm not to say that's a bad person. What am I supposed to say? Well, I mean, there were circumstances, I'm sure. But you gotta call a thing what a thing is.
And you just did. You said your deeds
Yeah.
were evil. That's true. That's a discernment. That is a judgment. That is an evaluation. But the one thing we have to remember about people when we come across them, they are still ministry opportunities, regardless of what they've done. God does not want to lose any of us. As Christians, when we run across people, what do we see? Somebody to avoid or somebody to minister to? That's our mind. We have to change our mindset because God justified Rahab, who's a prostitute. God justified Moses, who murdered a man. He justified Paul, who murdered a bunch of Christians. He justified David, even though he committed adultery and murder. Where would we be if he didn't justify us? I don't know how true it is, but I heard, what was Charles Manson? Was that the dude that killed all those people? He had the little cult and all that stuff. Heard he accepted Christ before he died. I don't know if it's true or not, because of course, he was in prison. But again, a lot of us see Charles Manson and be like, oh, he's an evil man. He killed all these people, lock him up. But God says, that's someone that I want to save. And I need to send somebody. So that they can speak into his life and transform him. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, Pastor, I hear you, but when you throw that on the court, that's not what you're gonna hear with the legalities of it. There should be a punishment for the crime. The punishment should fit the crime. If we, and maybe I'm playing the antagonist here, but if we look at every situation as, yeah, and I'm not gonna judge you, but I always gotta take in consideration some motivating factor that caused you to walk into that classroom and shoot those kids. There's some motivating factor that caused that husband to beat that wife to death. If we keep feeding that, and then the laws become useless.
Now, understand, don't hear what I'm not.
Different than with mercy,
No,
I get, but-
hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying remove consequences. Neither is God. David was a man after God's own heart, but he still had to pay the price for his sin. And we just talked about a couple of weeks ago how it dogged his house, how it ended up popping up in his kids and all this stuff. So David paid a heavy price for that 5 minutes of pleasure. So I'm not talking about that at all. Sean said 3 minutes.
Probably a
Us
minute and
as
a half.
Christians, when we see what we examine or discern as bad, that
If someone commits a sin, and I can say this because I've been through this situation. If someone commits a sin, they have to answer for the sin. But I can still recognize your value as a child of God. And when I say child of God, I'm not necessarily saved. I'm just talking about a creation
right.
of God. We're still valuable. God still sees. Again, you're a villain in someone's story, but God still came after us. A couple of weeks ago, you said I was an anomaly. I was an anomaly to my wife, but not necessarily to the other people. You see what I'm saying? They didn't hear what I told her. So to them, I was a heartbreaker. I'm a villain in their story. But am I still that same person? No. And they may never forgive me. That's fine. I'm not asking for their forgiveness per se, and I probably don't deserve it, to be perfectly honest. And if not having a relationship with them is the consequence, so be it. Sometimes we have to own, again, I know we have a hard time doing it, but we have to separate consequence, and I see you. We have to separate consequences from God's judgment. They're not the same thing. Even when we sin, it kicks off consequences. It also kicks off judgment. We can be saved from the judgment, meaning the condemnation, but we still have to deal with the consequences. Two different things. Just means when we get to the end of our life, we no longer have to pay the price for that because we already paid that price in our consequences. But again, there's a spiritual judgment that happens when we sin. God is saying, if you accept me, you won't, I've paid. And again, even those consequences have to be paid for. Jesus is saying, I paid those spiritual consequences. I paid that judgment. So now you don't have to pay it. So everything gets paid for. It's just, in God's economy, Jesus acts as the substitution for what you did. That makes sense? Marcus?
I was going to say, I might just be out a little bit, so just stop me from talking, but it's slang. I might start talking a little too much, but if I do,
Okay, remember you said that. So
yeah. I feel like as people, from hearing what you're saying, Miss Cosby, I feel like as people and as Christians, I feel like we need more love than hate in our heart. So yeah, all the bad people in the world that's done terrible actions, I don't think we should look at them as just their actions in the sense, because like, let's say, who's the dude you said that killed a bunch of people and got
Charles Manson.
Yeah, that dude, I don't know what he did. I'm not familiar with it, but I feel like his actions were very terrible, you know what I'm saying? But
And he paid for them.
I feel like we shouldn't, if he got saved and he truly gave his life to Christ, I'm not saying forget what he did, but I don't think we should hate him. I don't think as people we should hate anybody, because everybody is human. Everybody makes mistakes. Some of them, they're not going to be as terrible as others. I don't think I'm saying that right, but still, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. That's why I don't think we can judge any. Oh, stop missing, scaring me. But I don't think we can judge anybody when it comes to hating against them necessarily. And I'm just a person that, I just look for the good in everybody too. So I feel like when it comes to terrible crimes and terrible people, you know what I'm saying? I try to look for the good in people. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that's why.
With Dar real quick.
I guess that's why I say it like that.
Okay, I just want to add on to what Marcus said. I completely agree. Y'all know me. I'm super okay, this is going to sound weird, but I'm super into like fairy tales and fantasy. And you know how in fairy tales there's always a villain and there's always like the antagonist, the hero. And y'all know that show Once Upon a Time, where it like goes back into like why the villains are the way that they are and the heroes are the way that they are. A lot of the people who commit bad things, this isn't justified, but it's like I look at why are you like that rather than what you are, what you did. Like everybody has a reason why they end up the way they are, why they do the things they do. So I agree with Marcus, like just operating in more love, not holding grudges, because a lot of the villains in the world, what we deem villains, like I don't even want to get too much into it because I don't know them personally. But I was watching like even the Menendez story. If what they said is true about what happened to them in their childhood, that is awful. And that's what drove them to kill their parents. They're not right.
And let's be fair. If it's true, what their father did is awful, but what they did is also
Yeah,
awful.
and
like
the
two
judgment-
things can be true
and,
at the
like,
same
you
time.
still get and you still get those
The
consequences.
father obviously paid the consequence for what he did.
Yeah, he's gone.
They also
Pay
paid the consequence for
yeah.
what they did.
But I think to say that there's no, because sometimes just because, like, even after those consequences are paid, people are like, oh, there's no coming back from this. God didn't say that. But sometimes as humans operating in our flesh, we think to how we would have handled it rather than how God would have handled it. Because at the end of the day, it's not, like you said, it's not our job to pass consequences.
I know Sean's
On
just
people.
on me, but that's a very complicated issue. A mother standing there in a courtroom looking at the man who's raped and murdered her child. I'm not looking for the good in you. I'm looking for the consequence to equal the crime. Now, I know
And here-
down the road, pray about it. But at that moment, there's no way in the world I'm gonna stand there and honestly say I'm looking for the good in somebody who's raped and murdered my child. No.
And here, don't hear what I'm not
Sorry,
saying.
God, not gonna happen. Sorry.
Don't hear what I'm not saying. You can forgive and never, and still hold that person accountable. We ain't gonna be friends. We won't talk. So again, there's nothing wrong with. I have somebody that burnt me on a business deal, right? I'm coming to you, Sean. I had a person that burnt me on a business deal, right? If I saw him today, I would say hi, all that stuff. But let me tell you what will never happen. I'll never do business with him again. And I haven't for over 20 years. Potato, but my point is, forgive and forget is not a thing. That's what we say. You can forgive. Forgiveness just means that I have taken away my right to punish you. Doesn't mean that you don't get punishment. Meaning I have taken away my right to punish you. Because here's the deal with with unforgiveness. I'm laughing because this is a perfect example in my life. Forgiveness only affects you. Or unforgiveness only affects you. Again, I can think of someone that I dated, that I see every now and then. When I see them, their whole face changes. They go back 35, 40 years. Like literally their face turns into a time machine. They haven't forgiven me. And again, they're justified. But I have gone on with my life. Your unforgiveness of me hasn't done nothing to me. And bitterness eats up the person that's holding the bitterness, not the person that's been released. So forgiveness is not for the person that offended you. Forgiveness is for you. Because there are those of us that live in unforgiveness that have never been able to move forward in life because that unforgiveness keeps us tethered, keeps us stuck right there in that moment. It's not saying you've let go of their crime. It's not saying that you don't admit that what you did was evil, what you did was wrong, you hurt me, all this stuff. But you're going to have to carry the weight of that because I'm going on with my life. Again, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Tamar when she got raped by her half-brother Amnon. Tamar was never the same. She stayed in her brother Absalom's house, never came out. We never hear about her again. She wrestled with the consequences of that. The Bible doesn't say this, but I have to wonder, was she so riddled with unforgiveness that she never was able to be fruitful again? So, Sean, go ahead. Yes, you.
So this is going to be brief, but twofold thing. This can be a very controversial subject all the way around. Number one, the thing that you said about God does not judge us by our deeds. So here's what gets confusing. And I'm just talking about from people who talk to me, who ask me questions. I don't know why they're asking me, but people who ask me questions and who I've been in conversation with. There's a standard that God has set, a precedence that he has set for Christians, okay? if he's not judging us on our deeds, why is the set precedence there? Why can't we just go out and live however we want to live?
Okay.
Because I have a heart for Jesus, but I have a heart for Jesus, but I also got a heart for drinking tequila or a heart for having sex. But if he's not judging me on my deeds, which are my actions, which are the things that I am doing, then why is the precedent set?
What we do for God doesn't come out of being afraid of his consequences or being afraid of his judgment. What we do comes out of that love that you have for him.
Right. There's a reverence for God, a love for
Right.
God.
So just because you do the deeds, you have two people. One person loves God and does all the stuff perfectly. Another person doesn't love God, but also does all the stuff perfectly.
Or what about the person who loves God and doesn't do the stuff perfectly?
The person that loves God, realistically, in God's eyes, that ain't really possible. Because if you love me, you will obey my commandments. Not obey my commandments so you'll love me. As everything you do gets born out of that love. A mother will suck the boogers out of a child's nose.
It's disgusting.
You say it's disgusting, and you say I'll never do it, but have a child.
Say so.
And the child.
You will.
And you can't breathe in a heartbeat.
And the mother didn't know exactly what it meant, and y'all laugh now. Holler at me when you do it. I'm trying to tell you. Why does she do what she swore she would never do? It was love. And again, that's why I'm saying certain key events in my life, getting married and having kids, helped me understand God on a whole different level. And I'm not saying that you can't understand God if you don't get married, don't have kids. That's not what I'm saying. But it helped me understand because, again, I will do stuff out of character for my children or for my wife because of love. Because I'm so motivated. You do it too. I watch you do the stuff you do for these kids. You don't do it because you like them kids. Some of them kids get on your nerves. They be getting disrespectful. And I ain't watch you smack one yet.
Well,
I'll just use my wife and I as an example. If I say, if you do these things, it demonstrates love to me. Now, but, okay, let's say, are y'all familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yes.
Okay. So if my love language is words of affirmation, but her love language is gifts, right? Giving the gifts. And I tell her my love language is words of affirmation. But because her love language is gifts, she's giving me stuff all the time. Does she love me? Do I receive that as love? And I've told you, this is how you love me. This is how you can demonstrate love to me. This is, if you learn how to do this, this is what communicates love to me. If she doesn't do that, does that demonstrate love? Does she love me? It's a real question, like I want to answer.
No.
Okay. So if God tells you in his word, this is how you love me. This is, and again, it's, and I know it gets tricky because it's a heart thing, but this is how you love me. And we don't do that. If we don't seek him genuinely with our heart, then do we really love him? Because again, heart change occurs before any of the other stuff does. Heart change occurs before baptism. Heart change occurs before you do all the do all the stuff, the Bible reading, all that other stuff. Your heart has to be positioned first. The problem that we have in churches is we've allowed people that are just doing all the stuff to identify as Christians. And granted, that's fair because we can't judge the heart.
Right.
But God does. And God, who is the only person that can judge the heart, he's the one that says, that one's mine. I never knew you. Because again, he's not judging, and he's telling you, you did all the right stuff. You helped all the people. You did all the churchy things, but your heart was never into me. And that's the only thing that matters in his economy.